Welcome to A Tale of Two Cities, a special series on WION. The series will uncover many facets and folds of what it takes to be a fully realized and self-sufficient city. We'll travel around the globe to show how two distinct cultures can transform in tandem without directly affecting one another and yet having parallels. A passionate designer and urban planner, Dikshu Kukreja of CP Kukreja Architects set sails on a journey to 8 cities of the world, talking to presidents, prime ministers, mayors, and explores how these cities are linked to each other. Today, he looks at Melbourne in Australia and Kolkata in India. Let's go over to Dikshu and see what he has for us.
Cities have a lot in common than what meets the eye. But can two cities across the globe have a similar colonial past? Can they have a shared propensity for intellectual pursuits? In today's episode, my tale is of two such cities, Kolkata and Melbourne. Both are the arts and culture capitals of their countries. In fact, they are also former capitals of their respective countries, India and Australia. There's more. In fact, the first ship that arrived at Phillip Bay with the view of establishing a penal colony in Melbourne was actually named, would you believe, Calcutta, which was the former name of Kolkata during the British Raj. Kolkata and Melbourne's connection is more than its love for cricket or having the largest stadium. Today, I have the pleasure of having a conversation with the Honourable Lord Mayor of Melbourne, Miss Sally Capp. Welcome, Lord Mayor. It's a pleasure to have you with us in this conversation. For me, I believe that culture is literally what makes the city. In fact, it's the DNA of the city. How would you define this DNA or culture of Melbourne?
Well, hello, Dikshu. It is lovely to join you this evening. A real honour to have a chance to talk about our two cities. We are the events and culture capital of Australia. We have more events and festivals than any other city. And it really ranges, Dikshu. It could be sport. You mentioned cricket. We're mad on Australian rules football, but really we would turn up to any sporting event. And we're looking forward to the Commonwealth Games in 2026 hosted here in Melbourne and Victoria. Through to cultural events, we've just had one of our biggest ever crowds coming to the Australian Formula One Grand Prix. In fact, the biggest ever crowd of anywhere in the world. And then we do love the arts and performance. Our National Gallery of Victoria has just had the Gabrielle Chanel exhibition, bringing hundreds of thousands of people to our city over the course of 3 months. And we've currently got Hamilton, Harry Potter and Moulin Rouge across our theatres. We're really into musical theatre here and our theatres are packed every night. So that sense of our identity built around events and culture is very real. But there are many features. We love coffee, of course. We're the cafe city. We have a fantastic Yarra River that runs through our city. Multiculturalism is a cornerstone of who we are. And of course, we have we have the longest continuous living culture in the world here in Australia. Dikshu, as I've just said, we think multiculturalism has added a lot of value to our city. So tell me, what flair have migrants brought to the cultural landscape of Kolkata?
So Kolkata as a city has been able to attract migrants, visitors from many, many countries, literally all around the world. I think that has also made an impact on its cultural landscape. And what you see there is this kind of amalgamation, not just of people, but of traditions, of customs, and many other aspects. People on the face of it see Kolkata having a very strong Bengali culture, Bengal art movement happened there, and many other aspects. There are so many Nobel laureates from there, not just Rabindranath Tagore and Amartya Sen and many others, but including who we call our very own Mother Teresa, who is from traditionally from Albania, but came over and settled in Kolkata. So really, Kolkata in that sense has been a true melting pot. And I feel that another aspect in a city, if we go back into history and look at civilization, most of the cities have actually come up along rivers. And Kolkata is also one such city which has a very iconic river, the Hooghly River, which has really led to civilization there. There is the old part of Howrah on one side of the river, and then the British came and inhabited the other side along the river, which has really slowly expanded, and we have the Victoria Park and many other Victoria Memorial and many other elements that are there in that city, including, of course, the iconic Howrah Bridge, which is a bridge, as an architect I can share with you, very fascinating. It's a bridge which has been built without any nuts and bolts. Now about Melbourne, I realized that there is of course a river running through the city there as well, the Yarra River. And I also hear that there's a lot of riverfront development that you have been thinking about, proposing. Tell us more about that.
For us, the north bank of our Yarra River is very neglected, it's underappreciated, it's underutilised, and it's underinvested. But it is now going to be a showpiece for our city. We are rejuvenating the north bank with a 4-kilometre long promenade from, we call it Birrarungma to the Balti Bridge, so from the centre of the city to one of our municipalities on the harbour. And it's a promenade for pedestrians and cyclists, and it's going to connect new green open spaces. So it's very much a nature walk in the middle of our city to be able to bring people closer to the river and recreate that sense of nature in a significant way. We're inspired by the project in New York called Highline. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to visit. It's about taking existing urban infrastructure, rejuvenating and literally transforming those parts of the city. And Highline's become not just an oasis for locals, but it's also become the #1 visitor attraction.
Isn't that wonderful, Lord Mayor? I mean, you are talking about taking inspiration from another city, another part of the world, in this case, Highline from New York. And here we are talking about now what you're doing along the Yarra River. I think this is what the Tale of Two Cities is all about, how much we can learn from each other, share knowledge, share experiences. Let's talk about culture. I referred earlier that both our cities, Melbourne and Kolkata, are referred to as the culture capitals in their countries. And they truly have so much going on. You mentioned about so many activities happening in Melbourne. Kolkata is referred to as the city of joy. People also love to flock to theatres, musicals, art festivals. A lot of that action goes on in the city all the time. Tell us a little bit more about what Melbourne does to keep its culture thriving, happening all year long.
We work with other organisations across our city to make sure that there are constantly attractions to bring people together. And it could be a small multicultural festival that's been organised by a local group. We've recently just been talking to the Indian Film Festival and the work that they do here in Melbourne, and getting excited about what lies ahead in 2022. We are actually the second most multicultural community in Australia, just behind Dandenong, which is also in Victoria. We have more than 140 different cultures based here in our city. And the richness of that comes through in everyday life. From the different sorts of food offerings that we have, the different influences we see, everything from language to visuals. And I think that's one of the secret weapons we have here in Melbourne, is that Melburnians and Victorians really love to get in behind the organisers of events, and we turn up and we really make the most of the opportunity.
Fantastic. Another passion, in fact, what you have just mentioned, I can say even Kolkatans would share with Melburnians, as you've explained, is the passion for sports. You could go to a home in Kolkata in the middle of the night, wake up a person there and start wanting him to talk about sports, and you'll have him in full action. I mean, sports is literally running in the blood in people in Kolkata. So it's something very much part of the culture there. And we have the cricket stadiums and the football grounds, etc. But share with us a little bit about the world-class sports infrastructure that Melbourne has ended up creating.
Well, we're sports nuts, Dikshu. So when our governments want to spend money on sporting facilities, again, there's a lot of approval and support across our city. And this is demonstrated in the world-class infrastructure, but also in our community infrastructure, which we're responsible for delivering as well. Because we want to see grassroots sports. We know how important sport is for physical health, emotional health, mental health, and for really bonding the community. So whether you're involved in playing a game of cricket or you're at the MCG, the biggest stadium in the world with 100,000 people watching an international test series, we have it all here in Melbourne. We're the only city in the world, actually, that hosts both a tennis Grand Slam competition at Rod Laver Arena in Melbourne Park, which is renowned now. We've got 3 arenas within there with closable roofs for all-weather sport. We have a magnificent park for playing tennis, but also for the entertainment parts of an international competition like that. And in addition to hosting a Grand Slam, we also host a Formula One Grand Prix. Manchester United playing Crystal Palace later this year. Cricket, there's always a cricket game going on in Melbourne, rain, hail or shine. We have invested a lot in our sporting infrastructure and we want to make sure it's leveraged to its fullest extent. And we would love to welcome more people from Kolkata to come down and enjoy sport here in Melbourne.
So the shared passion and shared tales between Melbourne and Kolkata about sports is not just confined to the infrastructure that the two cities have built or the joy that people have. But can you imagine, this is really quite interesting, that the amount of adulation that both cities have towards sportsmen of each other's cities or countries is that the current mayor of Kolkata, Janab Firhad Hakim, his nickname is Bobby. And where does the name Bobby come from? As he confides, it's from the Australian legendary cricketer Bobby Simpson. So that's the amount of passion. Yeah, that's the amount of passion these two cities have towards sports, you can tell. Another shared passion I think the two cities have is of food, and probably also seafood for that matter. Even Kolkata, people swear by the kind of fish delicacies and other seafood that you get here in Kolkata. And another aspect of Kolkatans is their love for sweets. It's called the land of sweets. There are so many sweet delicacies, desserts which come from that part of the country that we all relish, not just in India, but around the world. Why don't you share with us some of the passion that Melburnians have towards food?
For us here in Melbourne, food, it's beyond a sustenance, it's an obsession. And we're very proud of our food offerings. And there are 2 elements to that. One is the breadth of the multicultural offer of food here in Melbourne. Of course, it reflects our migrant community and it is a feature of our city. And the other thing that's important to us is that there's a real depth in terms of price points. So everybody can get involved, whether it's a small bowl of a pho or Thai street food in a little cafe tucked away in a laneway in Melbourne, through to 3-hatted restaurants that are very fancy and where you dress up and you may have 7 courses. There's everything in between across those multicultural offerings. So we have an area in Carlton which is all about Italian food, and one restaurant after another with some sort of Italian specialty, and a lot of them are seafood, by the way. We have Chinatown, which is Australia's oldest Chinatown, one of the oldest in the world, where you can imagine people lining up for dumplings that are being made right there freshly in the shop window. Indian restaurants are actually all over our city, and so how we bring them together into one precinct is is a bit more of a challenge. But my mouth is watering just thinking of fantastic Indian curries.
Both the cities, Kolkata and Melbourne, have been growing. Population is rapidly growing in these cities, and that starts making challenges, posing challenges for the infrastructure and how the city can survive in a sustainable way. In Kolkata, for instance, I see that the policies are now towards going high-rise, to going more vertical and densifying the city, because there is a limited land quotient out there, but because of the increasing population, city is getting more vertical. In Melbourne, I hear that it's more becoming a sprawl. The city continues to expand horizontally. But you can tell us more about how Melbourne is coping with this challenge of increasing population.
Here in our city centre, Dikshu, we have 84% of our residents live in high-rise. And more people understanding the benefits of apartment living, when traditionally Australia has been very much about a big house and a white picket fence. And one of the reasons why that's become more appealing is because of proximity to work, proximity to education and health services, and proximity to leisure, whether it's outdoor areas, sporting precincts or arts precincts. And we want people to live in an environment where they can, within 20 minutes, walk to all of those aspects of their lives. So our planning and our planning schemes have changed dramatically to be able to accommodate and nurture the mixed use developments so that we see better outcomes. You mentioned sustainability, it's environmental sustainability, it's economic sustainability, and we think it's better for community for us to be more closely connected. For us, we're really trying to drive more of those benefits here in Melbourne.
Another thing we are doing in Indian cities now, slowly it's coming up, is the concept of transit-oriented development. Kolkata, incidentally, is the only Indian city which has till date trams running. And I know Melbourne also has as a system of mass commute tram system. We also in Kolkata saw the very first time the metro, the mass transit system being introduced in India. So I think this notion of public transit, public transport is very essential if we have to move away from cars and start making our cities more livable. Which brings me to another very important and serious concern is of how our cities are facing climate change. This is something happening across the world, and I think it's so important that the time has come that we as cities start sharing knowledge about the kind of solutions we can look for.
We have declared a climate and biodiversity emergency here in Melbourne, and we've set some ambitious targets to use 100% renewable energy by 2030 and be zero net carbon emissions by 2040. And we're at 2022. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. We have already transitioned to using 100% renewable energy here within the city of Melbourne. So all of our street lights, every elliptical machine in a gym, all of our libraries, our government buildings are all powered 100% by renewable energy. And we've now partnered with many other big users of energy across our city to join in a power purchasing agreement for wind power, and that's then brought the emissions down in our across our municipality, not just for us as an organisation. All sorts of efforts underway, but it really starts with our community having said this is a priority and we must act, and that's really given us the licence to be able to initiate and invest in many programs to help us achieve those two important targets, 2030 and 2040.
And we in India also are really taking this issue quite seriously. We face the challenge on one side that it's a country where the urbanization is continuously increasing and expanding, and at the same time we are making global commitments. We realize the significance of this issue. So I think from that point of view there's a lot to learn from each other and find those kind of shared answers to a problem which is really very, very grave. It's been wonderful to have this conversation with you. And I look forward, while I have not yet visited Melbourne, I would like to invite you to come and visit Kolkata and the rest of India, and I will out here get my bags packed and get ready to come and visit Melbourne.
I look forward to visiting Kolkata and learning and sharing, and we'll do the same when you get here. And I'll be very interested in your perspectives of Melbourne and those similarities and also those differences, given that we have some very similar foundations on which our cities have been built.
Thank you. Thank you once again. It's been truly a pleasure. We are used to comparing two cities based on the population or the size of their land. Yet, what has come through from today's conversation, that even though Kolkata has 10 times the population density and Melbourne has 500 times the land, it's the characteristics of the people that make it a shared identity. Situated next to important rivers, both the cities have worked relentlessly in preserving the equalizing qualities that the Hooghly and Yarra bring. It is observed that both the cities share a passion for sports, food, and culture. My discourse with Lord Mayor Sally Capp has revealed the value of learning from each other, the value of shared knowledge, and creating solutions that benefit not just the context they are set in, but also those who may learn from their example. Well, this was the tale of two cities, Melbourne and Kolkata. Where is it right now that you are at the moment?
The warehouse of my team, which is used as a spot for distributing and separating and registering humanitarian aid, which is coming from across the world.